for this program on behavioral-based safety. Behavioral-based safety is an integral part of occupational health safety management systems. We are here to get a feel of the topic because we are discussing this for 1 hour, so the time is very short. I would like to give you a brief on the topic. To start with, basically, I would like to tell you that this behavioral-based safety, I have conducted about 30 odd programs on behavioral-based safety, of which about 25 plus was conducted for Directorate of Industrial Safety and Health. The last year they conducted a program seminar named Chemical Safety for the industries in Maharashtra. So I was one of the faculty for behavioral based safety. To start with the topic, basically behavioral based safety, as the name denotes, it's talking about the behavior. Whose behavior basically we are to look at. When we talk of the subject, we know basically that there are many industries wherein we could see that a lot of mishaps has taken place. Big industries talk about laurels as far as the safety, occupational health and safety is concerned. But we could see a lot of disasters. For naming few, basically Bhopal gas tragedy, this was in the year 1984. Jaipur fire, IOCL, was in 2009. Fire at Shivakashi factory in the year 2012. And latest what we could see during the lockdown is LG Polymer Visakhapatnam on 7th of May 2020. Why I'm narrating these names is that we could see at the gate of the large industries, the reputed industries, the board stating that this many man hours without a single incident. It doesn't mean that everything is good as far as safety is concerned. No. The reason behind is that these are lagging indicators. If nothing has happened till now, it doesn't mean that nothing will happen. So to get yourself right, you need to be basically having a holistic approach as far as occupational health safety management system is concerned. So let's jump on to the topic of behavioral based safety. Next slide, please. Next slide. We'll see why bother about safety. Why bother about safety? We are not talking about ourselves. We are talking about the management. We are talking about the occupier. Go back. We are talking about the management. Why he is bothered about safety? Whether he has got the concern for people? No. The reason behind is that there are various aspects to the whole thing. Let's see the legality basically. If in case, suppose if you don't bother about safety, then where you land? The thing is that you land basically into giving fines. There can be court issues. Civil cases can be filed. There can be notices from the authorities. So to avoid this, the management things basically we need to think about safety. The second part is the business part. If due to any reasons there is a mishap happening, you will land in higher premium. There is a fire, a big catastrophe, you will land in paying higher premium. Uninsured losses. Even if you are basically paying the premium and you get the reimbursement to basically the claims, but you won't get 100% reimbursement of your losses. That's your losses basically. The reputation will go to the toss. You will have a low morale. The productivity will go down. So that's the concern area as far as the business is concerned. But the morale is concerned, basically the pains and sufferings of victims, their family members, basically can't be seen by any human being. So that's again a concern area as far as safety is concerned. Next slide, please. Next slide. When we talk of safety, what I talked to you about is basically the reactive approach. What we do is that after accident, we go for the analysis of the accident, we go for investigation, all those things are reactive approach. But as far as this behavioral based safety is concerned, it's a proactive approach. Let's see what is this proactive approach. Proactive safety observation program. You need to have this at the beginning. If you are interested or intending to go for behavioral based safety, to start with, basically, you need to have some observation done, and that observation should be a proactive observation. So let's see at this particular triangle, wherein we could see 33,000 at the base and 1 at the top. What it means basically, 33,000 is basically the number of incidences as far as unsafe act and unsafe conditions are concerned. Then we can see about 300 odd figure, that's talking about the near misses. That means the accident has not taken place, but it could have resulted into an accident that missed. The third is the 30 figure, wherein we are talking about the first aid cases, and the one at the top is talking about accident or incident. So we can make out that of the 33,000 unsafe act and unsafe conditions can result into one lost time accident. So our focus as far as safety, behavioral based safety is concerned, is that you need to be looking at the base. So your focus should be on the unsafe act and unsafe condition. Here there are some quotes. Never give silent consent to safety violations. Many times we see in our organizations, we give silent consent to safety violations. That means a supervisor, a manager who is on a round in the plant, he sees something unsafe act by an operative, but he doesn't hint him. He passes away. What it means that it means that he has been consented for working the same manner. The minimum level of safety I demonstrate is the maximum I can expect from others. This is talking about the top management, because when we talk of behavioral based safety, it is a top-down approach, wherein the whole thing focus on the top management. So suppose if I have whatever I do, minimum safety, that is the maximum which I can expect from down the line staff. Next slide, please. Why proactive approach? Basically, when we talk of behavioral based safety, our focus should be there should not be any incident. If there should not be any incident, then the previous triangle what we have seen, we have to hint at the base. That means we have to focus on the unsafe act and unsafe condition which is prevailing in the organization. Next slide, please. So as far as particular behavioral based safety is concerned, the whole focus should be a proactive approach. So when we talk of a proactive approach, basically we need to see that what is the unsafe condition, what is the unsafe act prevailing in the organization. And when we talk of behavioral based, when we talk of behavior is what basically? We are talking about, when we talk about a behavior, because when I was doing this particular sessions, this is the first time that I will not be interacting with you, but I want you to basically respond through the chat box so that I am aware that you are in line with me. So when we talk of a proactive step, so we talk about accidents not taking place, or how to avoid accident happening, or how to basically keep your workplace very conducive as far as safety is concerned. So proactive approach, unsafe act. When we talk of a terminology called unsafe act, it means that this unsafe act, not only from the workmen, the operatives, or from the staff, but it is talking about the unsafe act from the management. Why I'm talking of unsafe act? Because when we talk of conditions, we talk about unsafe act and unsafe conditions. What do you mean by unsafe conditions? The unsafe conditions are the unsafe act of the management. So we should be focusing on both the unsafe act and unsafe condition. So that's the reason it's talking about the proactive steps and basically proactive observations, what we need to do. So first and foremost thing in this process is basically you need to take a round of your organization with a team. A team formation is a cross-functional team wherein it's basically from all the functions and all the levels of the management and the operative representative. A cursory round of the organ or of the plant shall be taken, and all those basically unsafe conditions and unsafe act needs to be jotted down. That's what we need to start with. Next slide, please. And it is said that on a round, minimum 10 observations has to be noted down. Further, what is to be done about after that? You can see this basically a chart and a formula. It is talking about severity index. What do you mean by severity index? Basically, this is the baseline. You have to set a baseline, because whenever you for improvement, this is again an improvement activity. Because when we talk of behavioral based safety, or for that matter safety, what is that we talk to the management as far as the resultant is concerned? Resultant is basically reduction of accidents. Resultant is improvement in the work area. That should be something basically concrete, or that should be something which has to be coming in some numbers. So to start with, we need to set some severity index that becomes a baseline, and further we need to improve on that particular baseline. So what is that baseline? We'll just understand for a minute. Here we are seeing in the table wherein we see the severity ranges from 1 to 5. The scale of 1 to 5. What is that 1? Is basically the potential to convert into minor injury first aid. So this is that. So when you go for a round, you do an observation. So each observation has to be basically converted into the severity. Suppose if you go for a round and you see 10 observations, to rate that, you have to rate but in terms of severity all those 10. And then on the top you can see basically like the range is from 1 to 5. 5 is fatality, the potential of getting that particular unsafe condition or unsafe act into fatality. That is 5. The severity of that particular unsafe condition or unsafe act. So how to basically derive at the severity index? The severity index is summation of all those observations. The summation is basically we are talking about like you go for a 10 observations, each observation has to be rated in the scale of 1 to 5. Once you rate that, you have to sum it, and then the denominator is total number of observations, which are 10. For example, if we take 10 observations and each observations have various severities. So you multiply each, like of the 10, there are 3 observations which has got a severity of 5. So 5 into 3 is basically 15. Then rest will be having degrees. So have a summation of all those things divided by number of observations, that is 10. So that becomes your severity index. So once you set a severity index, then basically that becomes your baseline, and then you work upon those areas wherein after few months or after few basically years at a periodicity, you need to measure the severity index, wherein the severity index has to go down. That's what we say, there's an improvement in the actions what you have taken. Because our focus is not on accidents, our focus is on proactive steps. That means we have to reduce the unsafe act and unsafe conditions. If there were an accident, that becomes a reactive approach, and that is we are talking about the lagging indicators. And these are the leading indicators wherein nothing has taken place, accident, it has not resulted into an accident or incident, but the potential accident or potential incident was there, which you could minimize. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. Now we need to look at why do people work unsafely. Now, more focus of behavioral based safety is on a person. Let's see. There's a firm belief that it can't happen to me, or it won't happen to me this time. That is what is a understanding or a perception of a person. That's the reason the overconfidence, what we talk about. That's the reason the accident takes place. I go by my lawyers stating that I have got this many years of experience, so definitely I know the best. I am the master. Definitely nothing will happen to me. There can be pressures. What are the pressures basically? The pressures is the time. I need to finish my job in a particular time. The peer pressure is there. Peer pressure is basically the thing is that my peer is working efficiently. I am losing on the efficiency because of the breakdown, because of other reasons. So that's the pressure with me. My resource, I don't have resource. Of the 3 persons, I have got only 2 persons on the machine. So I have resource crunch. That's the pressure for me. The unsafe design. The design part of the machine is unsafe, so that can tend me to work unsafely. Lack of knowledge is also an area by which I work unsafely. I'm not trained properly, or I'm not competent enough to work on a particular machine. That makes me work unsafely. Even the barrier, communication barrier is there, the language is there, the complexity is there, which makes me work unsafely. My commitment, lack of commitment is there. I go for a shortcuts. As I told you, silent consent given by my bosses. They are least bothered about the safety part of it. They talk about production, productivity. So that tends me to work unsafely. So these are various reasons which compels me to work unsafely. Next slide, please. Let us see what are the drivers basically. Safety behavior. What are the drivers for safety behavior? Leader's behavior. I look at my leader. Leader is my boss. Leader is my colleague. Leader is my team leader in that particular group. So I look at their behavior and which drives me to work in that fashion. So suppose he is working safely or he has got certain set of principles, I work in the same fashion. So that's the driver for me. Clear expectation. The management has clear expectation that you need to go for, you need to follow safety norm. That makes me to work in a safe manner. Equipment design doesn't allow you to work unsafely. So basically we are talking about the control measures as far as the engineering control is concerned, which makes me to work in the same fashion, safe way. Training and coaching, I have been trained, I have been following the standard operating procedures. That is the way I work safely. Managing and encouraging compliances, basically. The management is more concerned about safety. They are more concerned about the compliances as far as the safety is concerned, so which tends me to work safely. Work organization. We have got a proper system in place. Safety systems are there. The SOPs are properly laid down. That makes me to work in a safe manner. So these are the various conditions by which I tend to work safely. Next slide, please. This is exactly the opposite of the previous slide, what we have seen. What tends me to work unsafely or my behavior, unsafe behavior. So these are various drivers. To the repetition on the reverse side. Next slide, please. This is talking about the behavioral based safety ABC model. So this is the concept of behavioral based safety. Let's see what is this. There are activators, the behavior, and the consequence. ABC. So what is that activators we are talking about, which tends me to work or behave in a particular fashion? and what can be the consequences. So because I am behaving in a particular fashion, what are the drivers for me and what can be the consequence can be seen in this particular slide. So let's see what are the activators as far as the industry is concerned for safety. Safety meetings are the activators. Goal setting, there are goals set for safety, that becomes an activator for me. Regulations which to follow, that becomes an activator for me. To take pledges during safety week, during various occasions, that makes you tend to behave in a particular fashion. Policies and procedures in an organization makes you behave in a particular fashion. Incentives and disincentives. When we talk of incentives and disincentives, it can be why it is incentive as well as disincentive. Incentive is basically, suppose if in a particular department there is not a single accident during the course of whole year, then you get some incentives by way of some allowances or some bonus or safety safety coupons, whatever it might be. Some incentives are given for a accident-free or safe, basically, department. What is the disincentive? Because at times the productivity, suppose if there is a incentive productivity, it can become a disincentive for safety to a certain extent, because people tend to give the output in such a manner that they bypass safety. So that can become a disincentive at times as far as safety is concerned. There are instructions which can be an activator for you. There can be signs which tends you to bring back or behave in a safe manner. The training imparted to you also plays a very important role as far as safety is concerned. Some models are there which basically you can recollect those things and you tend to behave in a safe manner. At times, basically, your peers, your bosses tells you by please saying please basically follow the instruction. That also reminds you that you need to work in a safe manner. So these are all activators as far as your behavior is concerned. So let's see what is that behavior, because when we talk about behavior, it is seen. There are two things. When we are talking about the behavior, we are talking about the attitude. Attitude is not seen, but the behavior is seen. So we are talking about here is a behavior which is seen. So what is that behavior of a person as far as safety is concerned? Putting on PPEs. To see persons putting on PPEs in the department, you basically talk about his behavior as far as the safety is concerned. Locking out power. If he is locking power, if he is not locking power, either of it shows his behavior towards safety. Using equipment guard, the guards in place, or basically making guard ineffective, is the behavior of a person which is seen on while working on the machine. Giving a safety talk. You can see some persons basically giving a safety talk to their peers, to their colleagues. So that basically makes you, or basically tends to know about the person's behavior. Cleaning up spills. If there are some spills in and around your machineries and you clean up on a regular basis, that shows your behavior safety. Coaching others shows the behavior. What is the consequence? Because we have seen the behavior. Behavior is a fashion in which that person is performing towards safety, which is being seen. And what is the activator to that behavior? That also we have seen. We can see the consequence also to that particular thing. At times, consequences, reprimand, peer approval is there, penalty is there, feedback is there. At times, the consequence can be inconvenience. At times, you get a thank you message. There is a time saving also as far as safety is concerned. Suppose if you bypass something, suppose if you go for a shortcut, the resultant can be a time saving at times, but sometimes it can result into an injury or an accident also. There can be a comfort to a certain extent. So these are the consequences. So we'll look at one example which makes it very clear as far as this model is concerned. Next slide, please. Okay, before that, we'll look at basically how the values, intentions, and behavior aren't always consistent. We start with our values. Values are basically each person, each organization carries with them. So it is the topmost, basically, its values are the intent of a person, which is the topmost, which is what you have set for yourself. Then through the values, basically, your intentions are seen. What are your intentions? Basically, should be in line with the values, and then with the behavior. So always when we see the graph or a bar chart, your values are on the top, followed by intentions and then behavior. So what is that we want to show through this particular thing is that your behavior should be on the upper side so that it's closer to your values. There should not be a big gap between values and the behavior. Your behavior should improve so that what are you are to be in line with the values what you set for yourself or for the organization for that matter. So that's what we want to convey through this bar chart. Next slide, please. This is example of ABC. We can see this speeding. When we are looking at a particular vehicle which is speeding, so we are looking at that vehicle that it is getting speeded. So what can be the activator for that particular speeding? The activator for the speeding can be a driver education. He feels that I am an educated driver. Why should not I speed up my car? That's why he is speeding. The activator for him can be speed limit signs. He sees that there is a speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour, and then he is driving at 40 kilometers per hour. So the activator for him is that the sign is 80 kilometers. Why not I speed up? It's a sunny day. I'm going at a low speed. Why should not I speed up? That's the activator for him. There's an emergency for him for which he needs to speed up. That's the activator. He's getting late. That's the reason he's speeding. The road is open. That's the activator for him. That's the reason he's speeding. There is no cops. Police is not there. He sees he's speeding. His car is a sports car. He feels that my car is a sports car. Why not? I should not basically drive my car at 40 kilometers per hour. I should drive it at 120 kilometers per hour. That's what is the requirement. What is the functionality of my car? That's the reason I'm speeding. Police is after me. I need to get away from the police. That's the reason I'm speeding. Others are speeding. I'm speeding. So these are various activators. Anyone can be an activator for my behavior of speeding. But what can be the resultant? We can look at the consequences of that particular behavior of speeding. The consequence can be wreck. My vehicle can break down. I can meet with an injury. I can get ticket from the police for speeding. There can be a property damage by way of basically my car hitting some property. It's a waste of gas. Not necessary when I'm speeding. That means that my fuel efficiency is there. Absolutely not. So I save on time. It can be positive also. So not necessarily always the consequence can be negative. It is basically I'm saving on time. I reach early. Then I get a fun out of it. So that also can be a consequence. There can be a wear and tear to my vehicle. That's again a consequence. So this is what we are talking about ABC. And this is ABC model is we need to follow as far as behavioral based safety is concerned. How it should be followed, that we'll look at a later time. Ahead. Okay. Next slide, please. How the sequence of unsafe act results into an accident. I start with risk. I overlook risk. At times I underestimate risk. I feel that risk taking is rewarded to a certain extent by way of I give productivity. I need to take a risk. Then only I can meet my productivity. I'll be rewarded by way of incentive. There is a risky procedure. What do you mean by risky procedure? Risky procedure is not written down. but it goes, there is no procedure at all as far as safety is concerned. That means it's a risky procedure. So because for age old, we follow a same mundane system, which is not written down, but is understood that I need to work in this fashion. That becomes a risky procedure. At times, risk is accepted by way of giving. We have seen that silent consent. So risk is accepted. So we understand that management is not interested in safety. So the risk is accepted. I work in the risky fashion. I ignore the risk. And that's the reason it results into an accident. So this is how the sequence of events take place, wherein due to risk, it results into an accident. Next slide. Now, if you look at this triangle, it is the same triangle which we have seen. That is Dr. Henry's theory we are talking about. So our focus, as far as behavioral based safety is concerned, our focus should be at the bottom. We are looking at the accidents, we are looking at the incidents, which is the tip of the iceberg, but not. We, as far as behavioral based safety is concerned, our focus should be at the base. The base is at risk behavior. That is what is being seen. We take risk, the risky behavior which is seen, the focus should be there and it should be appropriately corrected. And in time, it has to be corrected. That's what it's talking about, the behavioral basis. Next slide. This is Domino's theory. How injury takes place. The safety culture collapses, the equipment and facilities are not in a proper shape, management systems are not up to the standards. You take a risk and then it results into an injury. So that's how the whole thing collapses, and then which results into an injury. Next slide. At-risk behavior is usually a result, not a cause. We talk about accident as a cause. We need to look at at-risk behavior, which is a resultant. So how it can result into at-risk behavior, basically, because of poor communication, because of poor ergonomic job design, there is no supervision, procedures are not up to the mark, training is not given to the employees. To start with, when we talk about training, it should start with the induction training, then it should be job safety training, should be specific training as far as the operations is concerned. We talk about time pressures, we talk about peer pressures, some habits are there. So all those things account into a risky behavior of a person. Next slide. Why I'm rushing through is that basically our subject for the day is behavioral based safety, and we need to look at the system, how that behavioral based safety is functioning. Okay. So we'll look at the safety culture. This is talked about as a total safety culture. There's a person who comes with the knowledge, skills, abilities. Motives is his motives we don't know. The motive again is through giving inputs by the management. He himself basically having to be trained in a proper fashion. All those things will result into a motive of a person. The attitude, basically, we talk about the attitudinal change through various actions and the personality. So this is what a person comes with. What is the environment? Environment we talk about is the environment of the facility or environment of the plant, wherein there are equipments, tools, machines, housekeeping, the climatic conditions in the plant, the system. These are the environment and the behavior which is seen. So this is the safety culture. Our focus will be on the behavior. Behavior is basically we are talking about the person as an individual. The environment is the management, and the management, the provision from the management side, and what is that is the behavior which is seen in a person or from the management side. So that is what we are talking about, the safety culture. Next slide, please. So now I'll just brief you on the behavioral based safety process. As we have seen in the previous slide, wherein we have set a severity index. So that's the baseline which has been set by the management. Because why the baseline is set? Because of any activities you do, you need to get the result out of it. To know the result, you need to know where were you. What was the baseline before you started this particular, establishing this particular system, then implementation of the system, and then getting the result. So what is that? Basically, the initial levels, and what is that after implementation of the system. That is what is the resultant, or that is what is the effectiveness of that particular established system. So how it starts? Basically, it starts with the observation. Now, when we talk about this, basically, we are talking about an individual. As I told you, when we talk about the Unsafe Act, we are talking about here is referring to start with, basically, the severity index. More focus was on the unsafe condition, which is the Unsafe Act of the management. So basically, capturing lot many data as far as the unsafe condition is concerned, because it's a top-down approach. When we expect something from the employees, definitely the employees to start with, we need to give something to the employees by way of a conducive atmosphere, by way of unsafe working condition, which is the Unsafe Act of the management. That's the reason the initial round by the management was taken to set right all the unsafe conditions. This is now we are referring to the Unsafe Act of a person. So we are talking about the behavior of a person per se. Let's look at this, how it starts with a behavioral observation and the feedback process. There is an observer and the observee. How the observee is selected? Observee is a person who is accident prone. There can be a number of identifying who can be an observee. It all depends on the industry to industry, the severity of nature of incidents taking place in the industry. Those are all the focal points, or those are all the baseline how we need to set as far as identifying the observee is concerned. So it can be basically a function wherein a lot of accidents are taking place. It can be an individual for whom not many times he met with an accident. He is an accident prone person. It can be type of accidents happening in a particular department. It can be the nature of accidents in that particular department. So a number of different reasons can be there for identifying a observee. So once you start observing a observee, it starts with basically observation of the observee. Who is the observer? Observer should be a trained person, trained person who has undergone behavioral based safety training in depth. Because when we go to the further slide, we need to know basically what is that observer traits are. What is that his approach should be. That's more important towards the soft skill of that particular person. No untrained person can become an observer, because he has to have some traits in him which makes him a good observer. So the observer will observe the observee at work. When he is carrying out his routine work, he will observe him with a set of basically a question or a particular check sheet. A check sheet is basically should be in line with whatever his activity is there. So he observes that observee. He makes a check in which when he observes him, he observes the unsafe activities of him and unsafe activity of that particular person. He notes it down, and later on he calls the observee to his desk, and on one-to-one basis share that feedback with the observee. To start with, he will share the good points, what he has observed as far as safety is concerned. Next, he will share with him the unsafe acts which he observed he was doing. He will question him what tempted him to do that unsafe act, that is what was the compulsion for him to behave or to act in an unsafe manner, he will get the feedback from that person, he will understand his difficulties, and then basically he will give him some clues as to why not you work in this fashion. He will take a buy-in from that particular person. Once he takes the buy-in, then again that person will go back to his work. He will again observe him. Again he will have a one-to-one session with that particular person. Again he will give him feedback. So the gaps, to bridge the gap, because in an initial session when he has done an observation, he comes out with the 10 points which are unsafe, of which in the second session he will come out with about 4 points which are unsafe. He has corrected on to 6 points which were agreed upon. Again that 4 points he had some issues, he will come back on that particular, give a feedback, and then he will get a feedback from the observee also. He will give him his point for correction. All those things will happen in 2-3 sessions till the time the observee corrects himself. But all these things will be between observer and observee. So basically the improvement goals are set among these two persons. It is again reinforced. Reinforced is basically he is taking the buy-in from that particular observee. That's more important. Otherwise, you can't superimpose him that you need to work in this fashion. Because when we talk of behavioral-based safety, it is basically through mutual consent. Because no one can enforce something. When we talk of behavioral-based safety, we are talking about, because for enforcement there is a law. We know law is there, Factory Act is there, rules are there. In spite of that accidents are taking place. The reason behind is that basically the behavioral part from the management or from the employees. So we need to set that right. That's what we are talking about, the culture building. At the end of the day, we need to come out with the safety culture. Safety culture is basically the employee or the contract worker to the lowest level. He also should know what is that safety culture. So here we are tending that observability to move towards going to a safe culture. That's how we need to look at that person. So when we talk of behavioral-based safety, there is no penalizing a person. There is no giving a warning letter to the person in the initial stages. But suppose after 4 to 5 meetings with the person, and in spite of that, he is not improving, that what it means basically, after a deliberation, it means that basically he is not interested. Then definitely you need to take a punitive action. That's how it goes to the management later on. Till that time, it is between the observee and the observer. Next slide, please. So behavioral-based safety is talking about brother-to-brother safety. Now we'll say, who is the observer? Observer is his colleague. Observer is not a boss, or observer is not a third person, or observer is not a cross-functional person. He is his colleague only who has undergone some training program on behavioral-based safety, and he has undergone a traits of how to basically counsel with the colleagues. That's what the observer has, one-upmanship as far as the other thing is concerned, and basically he has got a safe attitude. That's how the observer is selected as far as the system is concerned. So the observer is also one among the observees department person. Next slide. We have already seen this. Again, when we talk of this, the feedback can be on a one-to-one. There can be group of observers. There can be one-to-one one observer and one observee. Second thing can be number of observee. It can happen that, and later on, that number of observer can sit together with one observee and then give him the feedback. So it can be a group of observer also or a single observer. Then how it goes is that counting instances, all those things should be with objective evidence. There can't be that we can just label a person stating that we know a nature of the person, we know how it's working, and then we can just talk about that basically you are working unsafe, and also with objective evidence. It should be with a proper instance, with proper data as far as the timings are concerned, as far as where he was working, what was he doing at that time. He has to be given all those information. So all those things should be factual rather than assumption of a person. So this activity should be on a real time continuous and basically a real observing a person. Next slide, please. So this we have already seen that how it has to be. So employees are observed performing their routine task. It's not something special, like observer knows that he is observing me and he is doing his routine activity, and the observer is observing that observing. And then later on with objective evidence, he is giving the feedback. Yeah, next slide. See how it is. You can see a check sheet basically with the observer is looking at the critical safety related behavior of the vehicle which is being basically the forklift which is being operated by a forklift operator. He is observing the operator, and then he is sitting with the observee and then giving the feedback. To start with, we need to start with the positive feedback and then areas of improvement. We need not talk about the observers. Basically, we need to talk about the areas of improvement rather than we are talking about his wrong behaviors. Yeah. Next slide. Again, it is seen that in the whole process, basically the management support before this activities has started, and after that, before it was 47, then once you started this particular activity, slowly the management support increased. It had gone to 60. These are some real-time surveys being done. What is the peer support you got out of the whole exercise? Okay. Next slide. This is the process we have already talked about. We'll move ahead. Next slide. Yeah. So basically, actively carrying. Go back. Go back. Yeah. Actively carrying is influenced by 5% states. Basically, you can see what. Okay, fine. So when you can see at this particular slide, what is that? The whole thing is that you are supporting a person who is on the top. Everything is happening for the top person and with some objective. Objectives, you have to break that basically vessel. Okay, so that's the pot. So for that, you have gathered. So the whole support is from this many people to only one person, because the objective is breaking that particular pot. So, and plus without any injury to that particular person. That's how it is. Next slide. So it should not happen this way, that he is put to risk. So that should be support from everyone. So in BBS also, the unsafe act of a person, you need to support that person to see that how his behavior is changed and how he works in a safe manner. Next slide. So we can see as to what are the various interventions being taken by the management for accident reduction. So these are various things that is always there. So our focus is not on that. Our focus is on the behavioral. But unfortunately, 80 to 95% of the accidents are triggered by unsafe act or behavior. In spite of all these things happening, the accidents are due to unsafe act or unsafe behavior. It is seen that initially it was the principle. It was 85-15, that unsafe act of a person resulting into an accident. It was 85, and 15% was due to unsafe condition. But as far as BBS is concerned, it is talking about 96% of the accidents are due to unsafe act, and 4% of accidents are due to other reasons. Because we are talking about there is no unsafe condition as such, because unsafe condition also is the unsafe act of the management. So the whole thing comes together is the 96%. So our focus should be on 96% rather than that 4%. Okay. Next slide, please. So in this slide, if even though everything is there, basically the accidents are taking place. Yeah, move ahead. We are not discussing on this. Move ahead, move ahead. Next. Because time is short for us, so we need to skip something. Yeah. So when you eliminate unsafe working conditions and work environment conditions, you're upgrading. These are all basically we are talking about the controls, hierarchy of controls. So all these things, in spite of all these things, the attitude is the one which counts more. What is left is basically the attitude. So behavioral is external, observable, and an active experience. Basically. So we look at the attitude of a person, positive attitude and negative attitude, and then attitude. We said attitude drives behavior and motivates changes. So our focus here will be on changing the behavior of a person by which his attitude, there can be attitudinal change brought in, and through which the whole culture changes in the organization. Next slide. This we have already seen, so we are not looking at it again. Next slide. Okay. Here, when we saw unsafe act, so what we do for unsafe act of a person, we give them training, retrain the person. Every now and then this type of training, that type of training, other training, lot many training take place. So how the graph goes? There is an unsafe act, we give you awareness training. There is a spurt. Due to awareness, there is a spurt. After that, every now and then we can't give a training. Then there is a relaxation. Then again the unsafe act starts. This is how the whole thing goes. There is the unsafe act, there is number of accidents increases, we give them training, give them inputs, and then there is a relaxation, and then again there is a unsafe act happening. So as far as BBS is concerned, awareness level steadily rises because we are looking at an unsafe act of a person and correcting him by way of buy-in from that person. He is made aware of that. If you do in the session, what will happen to you? We'll take his buy-in. There are some difficulties during why he is working in that particular fashion. We set that right. That's how basically his buy-in comes into picture, and that's how he works in a safe fashion. So it's not only that you give him training all the time and then there is an improvement in him. Absolutely not. But there are some difficulties what he is facing on a machine in real scenario. You overcome his issues, and that's how he works in a safe fashion. So we understand that person. That is what behavioral based safety is taught. That's how there is a change in the behavior of a person. So our focus is on understanding that person rather than giving him inputs. Next slide. You can see this graph, which is plotted on time and accident. There were legislations, laws, based further technology came. There are rules which has to be adhered to the behavior. Then the behavior part, that the gap, you have to bridge the gap. Then only there can be zero accident. Now the thing is that legislations are there, technology is there, You are adhering to rules. In spite of that, the accident takes place. So that should be the improvement in the behavior, which will bridge the gap, and there won't be accident. The gap between where we are now and zero harm is referred to as a behavioral gap. So we have to build the gap through behavioral-based training so that there won't be any unsafe act. Next slide. This will skip. Next slide. We'll skip. Next slide. Next. Next. I need to focus on the important points. Yeah, this is the slide. Now, if you there can be a question to me as to I am an observer. What I need to observe? I have to observe in these 9 areas that's talked about as a BBS Navratnas. What is that? If I am given a task of the observer, I have been given a training to as an observer. My observation traits, my behavioral skills, has been properly refreshed. But which areas I need to focus on as far as my observation is concerned? Let's look at that. To start with the PPs, whether that person whom I am observing, whether he is following proper PPs, he is wearing proper appropriate PPs which is required during working at that workstation. What about the housekeeping? Where is working? Housekeeping surrounding him. I need to look at that. Using tools and equipment. How does he use the tools which is given to him, which he is supposed to use? How he is working on the equipment? I need to look at that particular area. Body positioning and protecting. How he is positioning himself while he is working on the machine. How he is protecting himself from the moving machinery part. That I need to look at as an observer. Material handling. How is that he is handling the material vis-a-vis what he is supposed to do? Whether he is using a mechanical means, whether he is using basically a manual handling, and how he is doing. How is he communicating with his peer group, his colleague while he is working on the machine? That has to be looked at. Following procedures. Whether the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, wherein the safety operating procedure is being followed by him or not in a right manner. The written down document, whether he is following or not, that I need to look at. Visual focusing. How is visually focused while he is working on the machine? He is looking at one place, working somewhere else, he is putting his hand in the machine, looking somewhere else. That's what I need to look at. Use of mobile at workplace, whether he is using mobile at workplace. It's not that the mobile is not permitted, but the thing is that whether while he is working on a machine and while he is working on moving machinery part, whether he is using the mobile at that time or whether he is talking on the mobile during that time. That is what it is talking about. So these are the 9 broader areas where the observer should focus on while observing or observing. So it covers whole of the thing. The point number 7 talks about his SOPs which he needs to follow. Next slide, please. Next slide. We'll look at the 8 pillars. Go back. Go back. Go back. Go back. We'll look at the 8 pillars of BBS. What is the 8 pillars? So it is starting from the scratch. Suppose if I want to go for implementation of BBS, so what I need to start with is take an observation round. What we have already seen, wherein we are talking about the severity. What is my severity level, basically? Score, the initial score. That is talking about the parikrama. I start with the parikrama. Then, put a question to an observer whether he is safe. So this we are talking about is observee and observer. Then praise for his safe behavior. So this is we are talking about after observing him, you make him safe, make him comfortable. and then have a feedback session. The second question is basically you will talk to him, praising him for safe behavior to reinforce. He won't open out if you start with bashing him with talking about his wrong deeds. So you have to talk about the safe behavior of the person. To start with that particular feedback, repeatedly request for a safe behavior. To talk to him, that repeatedly request for a safe behavior from the observist side. Educate him, retrain him for his unsafe behavior. You have to educate him and retrain him. That is talking about prashikshan. Then pratigya, you take oath from him, take an oath from that you will not repeat unsafe behavior. So basically the manner in which we are talking to that person, it should be polite manner, and then it should be convincing type, and it should be taking buy-in from that particular person, not enforcing anything. Prachar. So now he will become an observer. The observing will become an observer for you at a later date. So means you make him in such a fashion that all his unsafe behavior is converted into a safe behavior, and he becomes the observer for you, and he observes other co-workers. So that is a prachar. And parivartan, convert his unsafe behavior to safe behavior, because he will counsel to other persons that this is the way we need to work. So that is talking about like multi-level marketing. So once a person converts his unsafe behavior into safe behavior, he will talk about that safe behavior to the other person, that this is the manner you need to work on the machine, or this is the behavior you need to follow. So these are the 8 pillars of BBS behaviors. So this is the whole sequence of behavioral based safety. Next slide, please. So now we'll look at the personal dignity is critical to good behaviors. You need to respect. So now the traits, we'll look at the traits. Always treat people with respect. You need to treat people with respect. When we talk about safety, it's not a policing activity, or it's not an enforcing thing. If you enforce, it will happen for a while, but you can't sustain that thing. So you need to have a conversion done. That person has to be transformed. You have to look at the transformation of the person. So how can you transform a person? You have to first and foremost thing is basically treat people with respect. You have to respect person. That's more important. Always treat people equally. You have to treat people equally. You as an observer, we are talking about. People must be treated with respect no matter what their position in the company. So again, we need to treat in a fashion about in spite of his position. No one is average person. Focus on the individual, try to please everyone. So these are all the traits. Good behavior can be enhanced by accommodating the majority. Please as many people as practical. Bad behavior should be studied to determine causation. So what is the cause of that bad behavior? You have to look at that. Rather than basically enforcing him, scolding him, you have to understand why he is behaving in that fashion. What has sent him to behave in that particular fashion? That causation has to be known, rather than just because I am a boss, I can force him, but it doesn't work in the long run. Next slide, please. So BBS principle is observe, correct unsafe behavior on the spot. You have to, on the spot is basically when you sit with him for the behavior, for the feedback session, you have to correct it on the spot. Okay, correct it is basically you have to take buy-in from him immediately. So it remains fresh in his mind that on that particular day I was, because immediately after observing him, you need to call him immediately. Immediately, basically within a day or so, because that remains fresh in his mind that yesterday when you narrate the whole story to him, so that remains fresh in that person's mind, and he can tell you the problems, what he has undergone on that particular day, and the fashion in which he was behaving in that particular fashion. Okay, so that's the reason you have to immediately correct his unsafe behavior by giving a feedback on an immediate basis to the person. Next. So now the characteristics of behavior observer. We look at the character of the observer we are talking about. Concern for others. That the person who is observer, he should have concern for others. Self-initiation for correcting the observing. Why self-initiation? Like I can be forcefully given the responsibility by the management. But unless and until I got some initiation, I can be opening out. I'll go by the stereotype. Whatever been taught to me, whatever been told to me to do in that question. It's my role, I will play my role, but it won't come from within. So I need to be, that role should be from within, so that I will initiate that particular. So he can be a good observer. Develop multiple insights on safe behavior. So multiple insights on safe behavior. Why multiple insights? Because when he sits with that particular observee, he need to come out with multiple things, and then he need to pose options to him, and then that's how you can take the buy-in from that particular observee. Transforming the observee for safe observation, self-observing observation on safe behavior. You have to transform him so that he looks at the other person and actively caring. How the observer should be? He should be actively caring. What do you mean by caring? He should be a good listener. He should be praising. When he gives a feedback to that person, he should be always praising that person. If you don't praise the person, other person will not open out, the other person won't listen to you. Okay, so once you start praising the person, he will also accept you, you will also accept it. So that's how the whole thing. You should be accepted by the observee. That's more important for you, because he will listen to you. He should have the best observation skill. What is that? When you observe, you should keenly observe. So you should have the observation skills. Now, basically, go on to a chat box. I'll give you 1 minute. Next slide. Next slide. Can you just write the figures on your chat box? How many tigers are there? In this particular picture, how many tigers are there? It's observation skills. I think this gentleman has attended my session. Okay. So fast. Good. Only 3. Okay. Oh. Good. All are nearing, huh? Good. No, not exceeding 16. Why limiting to 16? Sky is the limit. Do a good observation. Keenly observe. Good. So the correct answer is, next slide. Next slide. Before this. Go back. Yeah. You can see the count of the tigers. It's 16. It's 16. So I request the organizer to give one Cadbury to each correct answer. Okay. Next slide, please. Next slide. We'll move on. Next slide. Next.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Again, this is in the similar lines. Basically, role of behavior observers. We have already talked about this, so we are not going into the textual part of it. Next slide. Okay. What does BPS observer gains? You can just look at this. So suppose if I have been made an observer in this whole system, what is that gain for me? Positive safety culture. I set in myself a positive safety culture. I feel that I am a leader as far as safety is concerned. Increase in production, basically, I get an increase in production, the organization, the job satisfaction I get, love and affection I get, because I get buy-in from lot many people, my colleagues, the peers. There's a good bonding between my colleagues and me. ownership. I take the ownership of this particular system. It's a teamwork, fearlessness, because I am open, candid, I'm actively caring, feeling to help. I get that feeling that basically people are working in a safe manner. I could transform people to work in safe manner. I get joy, I get confidence. I become open. I'm openness basically. Decrease in unsafe acts. So again, that's a pleasure for me, and I get a positive response because the whole system works in the correction mode. So that's the positive response what is I've been getting from my peer group. Next slide. Yeah, this we already seen. What is the observer requires the following interpersonal skills during the feedback process to the observing. Building trust. You need to trust each other, observer and observing. Managing one's ego. There should not be any ego. The observer should not have an ego. Having patience in changing behavior. I need to have patience because it's not necessary that in one session sitting giving a feedback then he will correct all his unsafe behaviors. Absolutely not. There can be 3-4 sessions and wherein he will correct most of those behaviors. So you need to have patience. You can't go out of patience. Light humor to ensure smooth positive interaction. That the whole interaction should be humorous. There should not be always a formal interaction. It has to be with some humor. Mutual listening should be there. I need to listen to his concern also. Why he is behaving in that particular fashion. Why he is behaving in the unsafe manner. So he also has some issues. So let's understand his issues. So that should be a mutual listening. Creating human touch in conversations. I need to be basically in touch with that person during conversation. Energetic presence. I need to be energetic presence because there is something, energy should be there in me. I should be active, not passive. Becoming a friend, not boss. I am an observer, so I am something superior than him. I need not feel that way. I need to see that as a friendly approach. I need to have a friendly approach and give him advice on improving the other person. Relaxing from personal stress. I need not put him under stress because he will be definitely under stress because this is the formal thing. Because later on, this message will go to the management. Okay, that's what he will feel, and that the other person can be in stress. Good observation skills. The observer should be having a good observation skill. It should be proper. Good means basically a proper right with objective evidences. He should have that thing to be narrated to during the feedback session. So that is what is wanted from the observer. Next slide. Key to success. Be consistent and unbiased. He should not be unbiased. He should be unbiased, sorry. He should not be biased. So many a times it can happen that because he is my colleague, so I have to set him right, I talk wrong things and all those things. It should not happen. There should not be any bias. Evaluate the frequency and severity of the act. So although all these things basically look, this is more important. Approach employee with his or her best interest in mind. Remind employee about external effects of the incidences. All those things basically to make him aware of safety. So this is how you need to conduct the session with him. Okay, public presses, material reward, verbal acknowledgement, all those things is a mean to success as far as the interaction with the observer is concerned. Next slide, please. We need to look at the system, how it works. Okay, next slide. Okay. Again, these are traits. We'll not go into that. This is a textual thing. We can read it. Okay. Next. Next, we'll look at the system per se. Next slide. Next slide. This is okay. Next slide. Because this is a half-day session wherein we are talking about. Sometimes the system motivates the wrong behavior. You know about the Domino's pizza. Like in 35 minutes, you will be given your consignment. If it doesn't happen, then you will get it at free. So that means what? it's a negative driver. Basically, as far as safety is concerned, it can result into an accident. So there's an issue. There's a motivation, but in the wrong sense as far as safety is concerned. So it happens. That's what I talked about, the productivity in the organization, in the factory, in the manufacturing unit. Next, let's go. Find the silver lining to build self-esteem and self-effectiveness. At least I know you're not cheating. So basically, you are true. Whatever is there, you are candid. That's what it's referring to. Next slide, please. Optimism or pessimism, it is all in your head, what we talk about. So all these things is a mindset sort of. Okay. Next slide. So it's like a carrot and stick. Why it is carrot and stick? Basically, it is again a stick also. We are here talking about carrot all the time, but at the end of the day, after lot many deliberations, then the person doesn't change. The behavior doesn't change at all. In spite of understanding him, everything, then there is a punitive action. So that is the reason we are talking about carrot and stick. But the stick at much later time, and then basically after surrendering to everything, then the stick comes into picture. Because at the end of the day, system should work. Because of a single person who is a nuisance character, it should not happen that it will sabotage the whole thing. So that's the reason the stick also has to be used at some time. But most of the time, absolutely not. Next. There is no quick fix for cultural change. So if you talk about behavioral-based safety, and after one or two interviews with each person, and you feel that everything is set right and the whole behavior is changing, and then there is a culture change immediately after say 6 months, it won't happen. It will take years together. But definitely it's a slow process, but it's a steady process. That's what we could see. It's a continuous improvement. It is a continuous improvement, not a continual improvement. Continuous improvement, slow and steady, but the graph is going up, up, and up. That is how it is. But it will take time. It's not a quick fix because it's a mindset. You have to change the mind of the people. There will be a transformation of the people. So it will definitely take time. The buy-in will take time, but it will always be on the positive side. Slow and steady, but always be on the positive side. Next. So now how the whole thing works. Basically, it starts with the management. If you want to establish the system, okay, and implement the system, you start with the management group. As we said, we have to look at the severity index. Once you look at the severity index, then basically you have to conduct the training and all those things for the people. Then you have to start the training of the observers. Then you have to start the observation. You have to start that process, the interaction process, feedback process, all those things will be there. Here, one thing is very good, is that you don't expose people. Whatever the people does the unsafe act, you are transforming the people. All those transformations, that figures will talk about how many unsafe acts were conducted and how many acts were corrected. But whose act was corrected, who has done unsafe act this many number of times, that is not reflected in the system. Because the observer keeps all those things confidential. Observer in the steering committee gives the information on the number of observations and the corrected observation, but not of the person who has been corrected or who was doing unsafe act. Those things will remain confidential between observer and observee, and to a certain extent to that particular department, but there won't be publicity of the person. Rather than they will more talk about how many observations were corrected. That is what is the beauty of the system, because we need not label persons. Definitely it will have a boomerang or it will have a negative side to it by way of exposing. If there is an exposure of the person, then the whole system will go to a toss to study. So when we talk of this system, we are more focused on what are those corrections rather than who are corrected. So no labeling of a person per se. All those things will be discussed in the steering committee by way of number of unsafe acts corrected, number of unsafe acts found, and number of unsafe acts corrected. That is what is being discussed in the steering committee. So this is how it is, that there is a steering committee, observation, feedback is there, the tracking is there, it goes to the steering committee, the results are being seen by the steering committee. Meanwhile, those we are talking about the initial stages when the severity index was set, at that time the unsafe act of the management also is parallelly corrected to the management side. So that is how the whole thing is being discussed in the steering committee by the management. Next slide, please. Next slide. We are not going to this because paucity of time. Basically, we are not. Next slide. So training, again, we are talking about first step in communication. How do you train, set for safety values, develop feedback skills, understanding observation process. All those things will be all those employees will be trained. Managers and supervisors will be trained on that aspect. Next slide. Next slide. So this is the process basically, the observations and all those things. Observation is basically from the management observations also for improving the unsafe conditions. Yeah, next slide. These are the enablers basically, that are feedback, observers data, what are the comments, quality comments from the observers, knowledge sharing, what is the at-risk behavior, the safe, the behaviors can be displayed, the at-risk behaviors, the safe behaviors, what were the unsafe behaviors, all those things can be publicized, because when we talk of this action, there can be actions which can be horizontally deployed, but not naming the person. Always it should be not naming the person. The person's name and the giving the feedback will be between the observer and the observing. But this action, all those things can be displayed so that horizontally corrections can be happening in the organization. Yeah. Next slide. Okay. These again are basically the points. How it basically observation takes place, what is the solution, and taking the commitment from the people and all that. Next slide, please. Again, these are visual controls, or basically these are through various means. The communication means displaying on the notice boards. These are the enablers, sort of like, and communication to all those employees, the contract workers, and all those things can be happening through various means like displays, discussions, citing example in the training, okay, through bulletin boards and all those things. So this is the report wherein they talk about the at-risk behavior which took place, which got corrected by way of data, by way of some illustrations. Yeah, next slide. This is again the news, the publishing in the newsletters and all those. So this is the communication media. Okay, bulletin boards, information boxes. Fine. Next. The steering committee. So members communicate through steering committee. The committee basically wherein the problem solving, coaching, action planning, all those things, basically decisions are taken. It's a planning forum. Okay, and how to move about in the system, basically various means of promoting the behavioral based system, as well as rewards, recognitions of the employees. All those things are basically being discussed in the steering committee. Yeah, next slide. These are the recognitions. Group recognitions, some celebrations, just saying thank you, pat on the back, reward as well as recognition. Okay, next slide. Drop boxes by way of suggestions as far as unsafe condition, that is the unsafe act of the management. So you can have these drop boxes wherein the employees suggest for improvement in the workplaces. So that can be one of the means by way of communicating to the management about the unsafe act of the management. Peer-to-peer discussions. Yeah, next. How do you report to various forums? Then you have to prepare a sustainability report wherein you have to review the whole thing. Basically, we are talking about what's the improvement vis-a-vis the baseline, what was there. Yeah. So basically audit to certain extent. Examples of activities we are talking about. So these are all what you call, we are talking about sharing of experiences, which, and what is the improvement, how it can be sustained, which areas need improvement. So this way, basically, it is being discussed in various forums. Next slide, please. See, this is how it is. Like we are talking about, this is not quick fix. After 1 year, the improvement is how much? Unsafe 66, 34. After 2 years, it's 44, or 10% increase. And after 3 years, it's 61. After 4 years, it's 71. Not even 100%. It can't be. So the improvement, what we can see, takes years together for improvement, but basically it is sustained, and the improvement result in the improvement in the performance and setting in the culture, safe culture in the organization. That's how it is going. Yeah, next. So finally, our target is zero harm by focusing on zero unsafe behavior. So we are now talking about not zero incidences, but zero unsafe behavior, which is the root cause of any incident, by involving all employees and workmen in previous approach. So this is how the whole system is. Initially, when we talk of implementing behavioral-based safety system, management should be committed, and for the commitment of the management, there should be a strong safety personnel or for safety department will give good inputs to the management, can support the management, and the various functions of the organization should basically, this is more of not a person driven, but it's a system driven, and wherein we are talking about this particular system as not person based, but rather we are talking about all the functions should focus on the particular system, and it becomes main focus area as far as the safety is concerned. So that's how it should be looked at, rather than the activities of the safety department.